We know that he's technically called Gojira, but we all call him Godzilla. This big guy needs no introduction. Originally debuting in 1954, Godzilla has been terrifying moviegoers ever since. The radioactive behemoth is over 120 feet tall and is powered by an atomic breath that can melt entire cities. When you hear those stats, it's hard to imagine how any city could survive a Godzilla attack. Yet they always do for some reason. But with so many movies under his scaly belt, which one is actually the best? Well, that's what we're here to discuss. So sit back and enjoy as we count down the top 10 best Godzilla movies. Let's get started. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I know, it feels like we're just talking about this one non-stop, but hear me out. Godzilla, King of the Monsters is the most recent entry in the MonsterVerse saga, and while it does take a bit to get going, once it finds its footing, it's a pretty fun ride. Sure, it doesn't really reinvent the wheel, but it does include some cool action set pieces and features an interesting commentary on humanity's relationship with nature. The film also introduced us to the most up-to-date version of Godzilla, which I think is a worthy addition to the franchise. Overall, there's nothing groundbreaking here, but it's still a decent watch, nonetheless. Coming in at No. 9, we have Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. To be honest, I had a really hard time choosing just one entry from the Showa era of Godzilla films, because they were all kind of bad in their own special way. But out of all of them, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is probably the most entertaining because of how unintentionally funny it is. This is the film where Godzilla gets a girlfriend named Godzilla and the two of them team up to battle the evil King Ghidorah. All of the acting is hilariously bad, even by 70s standards, but there are some cool moments mixed in here and there. There's a giant oxygen destroyer, an army of cyborg bikers, and of course, a showdown between two Godzillas. You can't go wrong. Number 8 brings us Godzilla vs. Mothra. While we're still on the topic of unintentionally hilarious Godzilla films, let's talk about Godzilla vs. Mothra. This time around, Godzilla's taking on one of his most famous foes, the giant alien Mothra. In this iteration, Godzilla isn't quite as destructive as he usually is, and instead he becomes friends with a little girl named Emiko, who apparently is able to communicate with giant monsters. After befriending Godzilla, Emiko rides on his back into battle against Mothra, who has become brainwashed by an evil alien force. But once again, the acting is so bad that it'll either make you laugh or cringe. At No. 7, we have Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, giant monsters all-out attack. If you thought the last one was bad, then strap in, because this next Godzilla film will make you question everything you've ever learned about good acting. On paper, this film sounds awesome. Godzilla teams up with Mothra and King Ghidorah to take on the evilest alien force known as the Destructor. But unfortunately, the film fails to deliver because every single person in it seems to have forgotten how to act. The plot is so convoluted that it feels like the writers just threw spaghetti at the wall and hoped something would stick. And I can confidently say that this is probably the worst entry in the franchise, but it's still worth a watch, if only to see how bad it is. Coming in at No. 6, we have Godzilla 2000. This next entry is a bit of a surprise, but hear me out. Godzilla 2000 is easily the best-looking Godzilla film ever made. Unfortunately, the film tries to add a pseudo-mystical element to the Godzilla mythos by introducing an ancient entity known as the Oxygen Destroyer, which somehow controls Godzilla's powers. But aside from that glaring issue, this is a fun Godzilla flick. The monster battles are awesome and there's a plethora of cool kaiju cameos. Also, it's important to note that Godzilla 2000 revitalized the franchise after a decade of stagnation and helped usher in a new era of Godzilla films. No. 5 is held by Godzilla vs. It. Godzilla has battled many foes in his lifetime, but few of them are as disgusting as Hedorah, a giant radioactive monster made up of pure toxic sludge. This next film takes place in a dystopian future where pollution and consumerism have run rampant, and of course, it's Godzilla's job to put a stop to it. He battles Hedorah across the Tokyo skyline until the two of them eventually end up in outer space. While this film isn't perfect, it does contain some interesting social commentary and has a fantastic climax. Plus, it's another great example of a goofy Godzilla film that's enjoyable thanks to how bad it is. Unit No. 4 is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Toho Studios seems to have a never-ending supply of creative kaiju concepts in Godzilla, King of the Monsters is a prime example of that. This next installment introduces us to the Shobijin twin sisters who controlled the giant Moth. When Mothra is captured by an evil organization, the Shobijin call upon Godzilla to save her life. I could probably talk about how wacky this film is for days, but I think it's best if you just watch it for yourself and experience the insanity firsthand. Just keep in mind that this is another film where the acting is straight dreadful. Coming in at No. 3, we have Shin Godzilla. You don't have to look too far back in Godzilla history to find another hilariously bad film. In 2016, Toho Studios released their newest take on Godzilla, which they appropriately titled Shin Godzilla, as in New Godzilla. The film follows the titular monster's rampage through Tokyo and the Japanese government's inept attempts to stop it. What really makes this film stand out is its unique take on Godzilla himself. Forget being an unstoppable force of nature. In Shin Godzilla, the Big G is portrayed as more of a Lovecraftian creature whose true form is beyond human comprehension. The film is a slow burn, but it's well worth it. If you want to see Godzilla like you've never seen him before, then this is the film for you. This next spot could have gone to a number of different films, but ultimately, we had to give it to Godzilla vs. Kong. Look, I know it pains me to admit this, but Godzilla vs. Kong is the best monster movie of the last decade. The film pits two titans against each other in a battle for the ages. From the moment they first clash, the film has you on the edge of your seat the whole time. Both monsters are portrayed incredibly realistically, and the action set pieces are Godzilla vs. Kong is a must-watch for any fan of kaiju cinema. Just please ignore the fact that the humans in this film are completely pointless. And finally, coming in at our No. 1 spot, we have Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. You were probably expecting me to pick one of the newer films, but trust me when I say that this is the best Godzilla movie ever made. Sure, the acting is bad and the effects are dated, but there's just something about this film that keeps me coming back for more. The story is simple. A scientist accidentally creates a time portal, which allows an evil alien force to enter our world and steal all of the oxygen, and the only thing that can stop him is a gigantic mutated dinosaur named Godzilla. The monster battles are insane. The plot moves at a brisk pace, and there's a lot of heart to this story. Overall, it's easily the best Godzilla film ever made, and a must-watch for any kaiju fan. That's all the time we have for today. But if you want to see another ridiculously long list, then check out the top 10 best horror movies. Until next time, stay safe out there.